Hello everyone. Today, I am excited to be here as your judge and planner. We have gathered here to discuss the controversy regarding HESC, or human embryonic stem cell research. This is an important discussion to hold because of the varying viewpoints on this topic. As a quick introduction, embryonic stem cells are derived from the blastocyst of a young embryo, and the problem many people see is the morality of this procedure. Despite us not having the power or influence as former presidents Obama or Bush on this topic, our discussion is still a contribution to the bigger picture. In the future, we might have the opportunity to affect this research directly. Here we have the support side, and here we have the opposition side. This debate should not be a crazy verbal fight, but rather an efficient way of learning the material through a new lens. We have our honorary judges here. A round of applause for our honorary judges. Once again, as a reminder, when you have 30 seconds remaining, we will ring this bell to remind you guys. That is it for the briefing. Good luck to everyone, and support Kids Grow efforts. Yeah. 3, 2, 1, go.
So why should we support human embryonic stem cell research? Well, essentially, it's just the next step in our medical research. First, we started off with germ theory in the early 16th century, and then we moved on to develop vaccines, starting with one for smallpox. Later, we discovered penicillin and started developing antibiotics, and even more recently, we started doing transplants of organs and limbs. Our next step is just stem cells. These embryonic stem cells have an unspeakably high amount of potential for saving human lives, and we need to be able to utilize this potential.
Stem cells have the ability to cure tons of diseases. A lot of them are not treatable with current technology. They include sickle cell disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, stroke, spinal cord injury, leukemia, heart disease, liver disease, muscular degeneration, Huntington's disease, HIV, Parkinson's disease, deafness, and cancer.
For example, Sonia, a 32-year-old woman, suffered a stroke and wasn't able to talk, lift her arm, or her leg. The stroke was caused by a clot that cut off oxygen supply to her cells. Looking for recovery, Sonia participated in a stem cell-based clinical trial at Stanford University. Here she underwent a surgery where stem cells were transferred from her bone marrow to her brain. When she woke up, she was able to lift her arm, her leg, and even talk properly. Her legs improved by 90% and her arms by 65%. This allowed her to make dinner reservations, walk, drive, and even run. This shows how embryonic stem cells can improve many people's lives.
Okay, so regarding the cultivation of stem cells, embryonic stem cells become available 5 days into pregnancy. Screening tests and diagnostic tests become available roughly 3 months into pregnancy, which basically help the parent decide or check the defections within their fetus, help them decide whether or not to abort the child. So roughly, it takes around 4.5 months for the baby to actually develop any signs of like reflexes to like stimuli, such as like loud noises. So what we can get from this is that there's actually plenty of time for the parents to make the decision to donate their fetus to stem cell research before the baby actually becomes alive.
There are many economic benefits as well. People being cured could have a decrease in health insurance. There could also be a boom in the biotech industry, which would create many high-paying jobs. The people being cured would also start working, and their taxes would go right back to the states.
That is all for our support case.
Okay. So opposition clause.
Three, two, one.
So you claim that there are a lot of currently uncurable diseases that can be at least treated with stem cells, which includes HIV, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. What kind of proof do you have to back this up? Because in the case of our case, we have adult stem cells, which have been looked at a lot more. What is your case for saying that these embryonic stem cells will do much better than the adult stem cells?
Okay, so in response to that, the problem with adult stem cell inducement right now. Oh, stand up, sure. The problem with adult stem cell inducement right now into embryonic stem cells, or I'm assuming that's what you're referring to. So according to a 2009 University of London study, the isolation of adult stem cells remains problematic because they're so rare, and therefore they're not as abundant as embryonic stem cells, and they won't be able to treat that number of people that have that many diseases. And also, according to a 2017 article by scientific writer Ian Murnigan, adult stem cells are not easily grown in isolation, like in a petri dish, but embryonic stem cells are readily grown. So adult stem cells are both rare to find and they don't grow well in dishes. So.
Please raise your hand for further questions.
Is that it?
So you mentioned that Sonia underwent stem cell surgery, but that was from bone marrow. Are you suggesting that bone marrow is our embryonic stem cells?
Does anyone have an answer? Could you clarify your question?
Okay, that's it.
And
Yeah, opposed case, 4 minutes. 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so the impact that we need to be prioritizing most in this debate is overall public health. Note that our opponents must defend HSCs or human embryonic stem cells, not all stem cells. Embryonic stem cell research has created a virtual black hole in the world of medicine, sucking up public funding into what is ultimately an unpromising method of improving public health. According to the Bioinformant, the government spent $1.5 billion on stem cell research last year. Dr. Moffitt of the Heritage Organization, however, finds that this is grossly insufficient. We have a limited amount of money to put into science, with the NPO writing that the 2017 federal budget only allocates 3% or $31 billion to all of science, with only a fraction going to medicine. Even if embryonic stem cells research could be successful, it will take billions of dollars and decades before we see anything close to results, because according to BI, only 12% of stem cell research funding goes to HSCs, and the rest is for unrelated species. Dr. Moffitt continues, there are no human trials. After 20 years of research, embryonic stem cells haven't been used to treat people because they're unproven and unsafe. This money could be used for research that actually shows promise.
Today, a stem cell transplant costs up to $800,000 according to American Cancer Society, and most people that need this type of treatment have a very small chance of getting the insurance coverage that they need, meaning that most people have to pay out of their own pocket. And many Americans will not be able to afford this type of treatment, and an increase in tax will affect the income of everyday people, all for a treatment that they couldn't afford in the first place. And the increase in taxation will also affect public health, as it would prevent the people from being able to afford treatment for basic diseases. And HSC surgeries may only end up helping rich people find cures to very rare diseases.
Stem cells have come to be known as a miracle caster that will cure so many of the issues that plague modern science. Lost limbs, organ replacements, all going to be fixed. Though an exaggeration, it's not far from how many people, the media included, perceive it. Yet the truth is, stem cell treatment, despite the millions we spend on it, still costs tens of thousands of dollars, the lower estimate being $14,900, as reported by the LA Times. This is only worse by the fact that it's not covered by insurance, as it's not legally approved by the FDA. This poses a huge obstacle for the implementation of stem cells in the operation room. Though we can research, we can't truly realize how effective it is in practice without trying it with regular doctors and regular patients. To do that, we have to put the very people we're trying to save at extreme risk. As reported by Science Daily, the 1-year survival rate after stem cell treatment is 63%. Though it might seem like an optimistic number, if implemented publicly, this 37% is really going to show. Perhaps, if implemented publicly, stem cell research poses an extreme threat that we can't predict, leaving no way to stop it.
In the end, there needs to be some sort of practical resolution that our team provides, and here it is. Instead of wasting so much money on funding embryonic stem cell research, let's devote our precious resources to a slightly different but more valuable venture. According to research done by the Genome Center in Wisconsin in 2007, adult skin cells can be directly converted into induced pluripotent stem cells that contain all of the essential characteristics of embryonic stem cells. Essentially what this means is that embryonic stem cells are obsolete. Furthermore, on September 7th of this year, researchers from Washington University in St. Louis reprogrammed an adult skin cell directly into a generic neuron cell, without any use of stem cells at all. From this generic neuron cell, they were able to create whatever neuron appealed to them. And this direct conversion doesn't just apply to neuron cells. Previously, researchers from McMaster University in Canada created blood progenitor cells as well as mature blood cells, again directly from skin cells. Even more promising, researchers at Ohio State University created a non-invasive chip that can reprogram mouse skin cells into any other mouse cell type of interest. You may say that we're not mice. That's it.
Support process. 3, 2, 1, go.
Matthew. I have a question. You claim that that embryonic stem cell research should not be pursued because it is not covered by it has not been examined by the FDA and it is not covered by insurance. Is that what you're saying is a flaw with embryonic stem cell itself? I mean, embryonic stem cell research in itself.
So we're saying that that is not the problem in and of itself. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not saying that that is the problem in and of itself. We're saying that that, coupled with the fact that it costs up to $800,000 for a treatment without any hope for FDA funding or insurance funding, means that you are essentially trading the public well-being for the ability of a very, very small and rich population to fight very rare diseases.
So you're claiming that
Please raise your hand. Yeah.
So you're claiming that embryonic stem cell research can be only used to treat rare and expensive diseases, correct?
Well, it is
Please
most,
raise your hand. Anish?
yeah, it is most useful for that because we do have other cures for less expensive, for more common diseases, and as you said, we're mostly focusing on embryonic stem cell research for really expensive treatments such as Parkinson's, which has not been cured yet, and essentially, it costs a lot.
Anyone else? Wait.
Okay, so let's kind of. Okay, so regarding one of your alternatives, which is induced pluripotent stem cells, I would like to point out some facts that right now it's extremely inefficient, where it yields only 1% in some experiments. And on top of that, some of your initial methods use retrograde viruses, which is basically a virus that mimics the DNA of the host cell to produce stem cells.
Alright. You guys have 2 minutes on credit
On preparation.
Please speak first from the rebuttal date, right?
Yes.